You're listening to the IB4E Coaching Podcast.
Brought to you by IB4E Coaching, business coaching for executives, entrepreneurs, and small business professionals. Learn more at ib4e-coaching.com.
Hey, Coach Harlan here. Welcome back to the podcast. Hope you guys are having an exceptional week. I'm having a great week, and I'm excited to introduce you to my guest today. Please welcome Dan Bennet. With over 16 years of experience in the video production industry, Dan Bennet has journeyed from working with Fortune 500 giants like Harley-Davidson and Bud Light to founding Video for Entrepreneurs, helping people who film themselves. His mission? To level the playing field for smaller businesses, helping them shine on camera just as brightly as the big dogs with hefty budgets. His philosophy is simple but profound. Entrepreneurs are inherently excellent. Dan's role is to unveil this excellence, enabling his clients to captivate new audiences with their authentic stories. Dan, welcome to the show.
Man, that was beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, the way that you shared that wording was fantastic and really does sum up kind of the last 7 years of my journey. So I appreciate it.
That is awesome. No, it sounds great because I know a lot of businesses want to be on camera and they have no idea what to do, what to publish, how to publish it, and things like that. So to be able to find somebody who can help them with their ideas and kind of help them shine, that's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, it's
all right.
fun,
Well, I
very
want to go
rewarding.
into, especially working for Harley-Davidson and Bud Light, want to find out about all of that. Talk a little bit more about your mission, how you got started, and some of the projects you're working on now. But before we get started, I've got 10 questions that I ask each one of my guests. Now, listeners know these are the questions made famous on the TV show Inside the Actor's Studio, where the host James Lipton used these same questions for his guests from Hollywood film, TV, and stage. And I figure if they're good enough for the Hollywood elite, they're certainly good enough for my guests. So, Dan, if you're ready, I've got 10 questions for you.
Sounds good. I'm ready.
All right. Question number 1. What is your favorite word?
My favorite word. Over the last few years, it's been grace. A lot of people ask, if you had the stage and a million people listening, what would you tell people as they're entering into doing this scary thing called creating video? And I always say I would tell them to give themselves grace.
Nice. Very cool. All right. What's your least favorite word?
Mucus.
That's good. All right. What turns you on?
The realization of potential in others.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what turns you off?
Bad men.
Too many of those lately. Too many.
Yeah.
All right. Question 5. What sound or noise do you love?
The sound of a shower that just got turned on.
Okay. And what sound or noise do you hate?
I think argument as opposed to debate. I don't mind volume. I don't mind ferocity. But argument where you can tell it's going nowhere. That sound is just kind of grating.
Amen. Definitely. All right. Question 7. What is your favorite curse word?
I love the show that these questions come from. And every time I watch the show, I'm like, man, I've always wanted to answer this question. And of course, like many things in life, I cheat. So my favorite curse word is actually 2 words, and we'll just sum it up with BS.
Good job. All right. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Getting rid of all my own limiting beliefs. I would love to be able to code. It's kind of the only space in the creative arena that I don't have much knowledge. So I would like to be able to just quickly create fun things like apps and
Nice.
programs and such.
Very cool. And they're making that easier and easier all the time.
Yeah.
All right. What profession would you not like to do?
100 years ago, I was a mechanical engineer and I hated every moment of it. And I still use it as a reference for my entrepreneurial journey today. So yeah, that would be it.
All right. All right. Final word. Dan, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
That whole helping a bunch of other people's make a bunch of dents in the universe instead of trying to make your own big dent was a good idea, Dan.
Nice. Good job. All right, we're going to come back and find out about those dents, how you're helping people make their spot through your video for entrepreneurs. We'll talk about how you got started, how you got to where you are now, who you work with, how you help them. And at some point, we'll transition into leadership and courage. All right. So, listeners, we'll talk about all that and more right after this. So, stick with us. And we're back. Dan, great to have you on the program. Harley Davidson and Bud Light, two of the big groups you worked with. How was that? What was that like working with them?
I'll use Harley as an example because it was incredible. And I often look back at those days because they were the genesis of why I left big work and focused on smaller work for my own well-being. But I never deny the fact that the checks always cleared. And I walked away with some really cool stories from some of the previous corporate work I did. In the case of Harley, they were doing a brand deal with Marvel's Winter Soldier, Captain America, and they had some Harley placement in that film. So we were doing some cinematic ad creation for that would run in theaters all over the Midwest. And so I
Nice.
got to go into some of their facilities and meet great people and just, I've always loved motorcycles myself
Oh
to some
yeah.
degree anyway. So it's just cool to be around them. But the real turn on for me was that I got access to their internal marketing servers. So I got to see
Mm.
everything from decades and decades and decades of marketing on behalf of Harley that I got to get my hands on. So we could see old commercials, old logos throughout the years. Of course, brand guidelines and things that we had to stick to as we went, but we got a lot of access to things that we could utilize if we desired to. And it was just cool to see such a heritage and a story that's being told has been being told over 100 years. So we
Absolutely.
didn't really have to make up too much. We just had to kind of follow along with the journey they already had going.
Nice. Very cool. But then you said working for the big companies made you want to scale back and work with some of the smaller companies. Is
Yeah.
that just more creativity or?
That was a small part of it. I appreciate you saying that because I don't talk about that much. That was a small part of it. Whether you go to film school and try and become something, in the creative space, or like me, you stumble into video and you make a living at it. Um, there's a little bit of not knowing the wizard behind the curtain until you finally do. So when you're still in Oz thinking everything's magical, you tend to think like, wow, if there's bigger budgets, we can do more creative things. And you kind of find out that the bigger the budgets, the more the oversight and the more red tape and the less creative it can be. So creativity definitely was a part of it. Um, but I'm in Dallas Fort Worth now, have been about 3 years, but I was born and raised in Flint, Michigan. So not a lot of opportunity, poor city. Um, and people around me would be like, how do you have a successful business being from Flint? And I'm like, well, none of my clients are from Michigan. So
Right.
I go to where they are. And I had a dedicated office space in downtown Flint. And I would, fly somewhere, do some work for a week, come home, and I would look across the dedicated office space hall at a neighbor of mine, knowing they couldn't afford me.
Mm.
And I hated it. It made it hard to sleep. So 2017, I was coming from behind the camera to in front of it to start creating some of my own content for my own business. And I realized very quickly that my filmmaking knowledge made that transition easy. And I started thinking, man, what if I could get rid of the jargon and theory of filmmaking and just keep the tools and then teach that to entrepreneurs and professionals? I wonder if they could get in front of the camera a little easier as well. And it worked. 2017, we had our first couple studio setups where people bought in, they trusted the process, and all of a sudden they looked and sounded great in the videos they were creating for themselves. And I'm like, okay, I think this is it. Yeah.
Very
So that
cool.
was the beginning of the journey.
So how did you talked about mechanical engineering, right? You went to college for engineering. How did you then get into get into film?
Yeah, I appreciate that question as well. So I was about 60% of the way through my degree, 4 point everything. I had a class I couldn't test out of, and it was AutoCAD.
Hmm.
And my teacher's like, "You're so far beyond this stuff." Like they were doing stuff in college, I was doing in like 11th grade and stuff. So I was like, ah. And he's like, "You have to be here. You can't test out. But if
Yeah.
you show up, implement testing, help me with grading and stuff, like I'll pass you because I know you know this stuff already, but you have to be here."
Nice.
So that kind of turned into a little bit of a friendship, nothing crossing any boundaries, but we became acquaintances. And then he would start taking advantage of it a little bit, like go get his dry cleaning, show up to class 10 minutes late, knowing
Hmm.
that we're all there and I'm passing out tests or whatever. And we were in a conversation one day, just a friendly conversation, and unprovoked, as part of that conversation, he had shared his salary. And I don't remember why. It had nothing to do with the topic of the conversation, but he did. And I realized at that moment he made about $4,000 more a year than I did, and he owned the
Mm.
degree that I was going after. And I already didn't like the job I was at, the industry as a whole, and that was it. I quit then, so I'm a 4-point college dropout. But I'm so glad it happened simultaneously as that journey was happening because, a high school teacher said, "You're good at this. You should go to school for it." I was also in a touring rock band, played music. I had my creative outlets. I was a grunge kid, so I was always trying to kind of push against the status quo a little bit anyway. And throughout that process, a lot of bands found me. They found out I was doing my website. I was doing the design for our merch. I was printing our t-shirts, and they're like, "Where are you getting this stuff?" And I'm like, "We're doing it because we're broke." So like,
Nice.
started doing it for other bands, realizing, oh, I can kind of help them tell their story a little bit and make some money and kind of break even like we are. And that's really powerful as a small touring band. So as that progressed, we did pretty well for 4 or 5 years, and we were getting to our 30s, and it's like, we're all kind of ready to kind of hang this up. We never really had dreams of rock stardom. It was just a really cool creative outlet. And so the last thing I wanted to do was create like a DVD CD combo and have something that when, I was 80 years old, I could look back and be like, look what I did, So that required some footage. So we got a little handy cam. We started filming in the studio, roundabout writing and rehearsal. And then I'm like, we should do a music video. That can't be that hard. And 6 months later, we finished it and it was incredible, but it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. And in that 6 months, from scripting, convincing actors to come from all over the Midwest to our tiny little town, all these different things, I caught the video bug. So all that creativity from the previous decade of my life started pouring into using that medium.
Wow. But it's not like you can just go and get a camera and start. There's a lot of pieces that go in with that and stuff, a lot of trial and error. How long do you think it took you before you really got on solid ground, solid footing?
I would probably say, let's see, 2010 to 2014. I struck out on my own in 2014. So it was 4 years. And I had some really cool things happen to me. One, I was invited into a potential partnership with a small production company, and I was the old guy back then. So I was like 3 or 4 years older than all the other guys. And we lived in a big house with a production basement, and we all had our own space and rooms and stuff. So it was kind of like a big, production house that we lived at. And I was already heavy into graphic design and, writing and all that kind of stuff. So essentially, I would create artwork that we could animate for our clients. And then I would learn how to shoot and edit while
Mm.
we did some of the work. And there's a lot of times where work was a little slow. So I'd be taking tutorials on YouTube and um, shout out Andrew Kramer. If you ever hear this episode, he was someone who was teaching After Effects and animations online for free. So I was taking all his free courses,
Nice.
and I started to get the hang of it over those couple of years. Um, Toward the end, I found out that the partnership was not going to happen as promised, and I'm like, well,
Mm.
it's time to strike out on my own. So 2014, I struck out on my own, and I was able to land my first decent sized contract to get me really going about 3 months into that beginning struggle of launching my first company. So about four
Nice.
years total, yeah, to kind of get a handle and then feel like I was professional enough to take someone's money.
Very cool. And what type of client was that first client?
It was a college, and to
Okay.
this day, it was one of my favorite clients because it was actually a lab. I think nationally they're called fab labs, so fabrication laboratories, and they were
Okay.
born out of MIT. But it's kind of one of those almost like, everyone contributes to it, no one really owns it type thing. So a lot of colleges now have fab labs inside of them. So they would house things like 3D printers and wood cutters and CNC machines, and you could kind of come out of the public and make things or prototype things or whatever. And it was just a really
Nice.
cool environment. So
Nice.
the technical institution at Mott Community College, of all things, in Little Flint, Michigan, had a fab lab in it. And that was my first client. And it was so much fun. We did web and short videos and campus tours and all kinds of videos around that stuff. So it was
Nice.
fun.
And so now you help entrepreneurs who want to be on film but maybe don't know what to do or how to do it and stuff like that. Talk to me about that. What are some of the things that people miss? I know I've tried to be, I don't like being on video necessarily. I know I've got friends that do like Facebook Live all the time because they just love being on there. You see guys walking around all the time with their cameras. I'm just not that comfortable. Is that part of it that people just they don't get on because they aren't comfortable?
Yeah, yeah. I have a healthy respect for the pure definition of the word fear. I don't always think it's a negative thing. I think it's something that in some cases has kept us alive, long enough to develop as a species. So like fear generally is at the root of a lot of the things that we help people through, but that doesn't always mean it's bad. There's a lot of healthy fears. It also doesn't mean that it's something we have to overcome. Sometimes it's something that we manage. And so that's really been my approach. As good as I am at the things that I do, like creating my own content, I still struggle. So I'm very open about that. I let everyone know with all the professional gear, being great on camera, doing all my own stuff for, 15, 16 years, I still have days where I wake up and I'm like, nah, I'm not feeling it today. So a lot of what I teach and help with is around taking the gap between having a great idea and comfortably hitting record and making that gap small enough to step over instead of having to get a running jump and maybe falling in sometimes. And even in my case, the gap is never fully closed. Sometimes it's real small and I don't even got to think about it. I just step over it and get going. Some weeks it's a little wider and I got to have some coffee and some meditation before I step over
Yeah.
and make sure I don't fall in. Um, but most of it's around that. I don't like my voice. I don't like the way I come across. Who am I for anyone to listen to my expertise? A lot of things that we face in life in general kind of gets compounded by the fact that it's on a screen. And then when I put it out, it's kind of forever. And that's a big, big deal.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't look any of that in the mouth. I definitely, empathize, sympathize, and then try and put in as many tools as I can in front of my clients and my students to make it as painless as possible. And then
Nice.
always keep it real and tell everyone it's still going to be hard. It never
Yeah.
becomes perfect. So,
Yeah. Hopefully it comes a little easier. Do you help them with the ideas? I mean, do they come to you with ideas and say, this is what I'm thinking, or do they come in saying, just help me figure this out?
yeah, to be honest with you, a lot of times it is just help me, which is one reason why we don't do sales calls. We do free strategy calls. And the only time
Okay.
those ever turn into sales calls is if the person desires it to happen.
Got it.
70% of the time, they are just strategy. It could be technology, it could be software, it could just be ideation. I help people solve problems, and then I get off the call. No pressure, no gimmicks, no sales, just strategy. And people really respect that. And we
Nice.
actually get unstuck because I'm taking almost 20 years of filmmaking knowledge and applying it to a problem I've seen 1,000 times. So a lot of times
Yeah.
that happens really quickly. So oftentimes it is like, I know video is important. I got a budget of some sort, like, help. And we identify. We only have three products, and on paper, they're very linear. People don't arrive linearly very often, but they're linear. And the
Okay.
first one is all around studio build, look and sound good technically. The second is all around strategy. What videos are we going to make? Why? Where they're going to live? And the
Okay.
third is for people that got all that other stuff dialed in, and we're just doing their post-production work. That center one around strategy is a lot of times where people land if they don't have a clear idea that I need to get the tech figured out or the editing figured out. It's what am I going to make and why? And so a lot of
Okay.
times strategy is kind of where we're starting with people, no matter what product they buy.
Nice. And do you do a lot of B-roll stuff that you can use multiple times, maybe for that client?
Sometimes, yeah. We generally are so focused on kind of tricking them into becoming better producers of their own work. That some of that
Okay.
stuff kind of takes care of itself. And then, of course, we have access to tons and tons of assets ourselves. So sometimes we do the editing and we provide some of that B-roll and that secondary storytelling. But most of the time, we're encouraging people to create their own things and realize that you don't have to become a full-blown filmmaker
Mm.
to take your smartphone around and collect some cool B-roll and put it in the right spots and actually tell a great story on your own. So
Yeah.
we don't do all of that full production work like we used to, but we definitely help ideate around it to get people across that line. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. What's one of the best projects you've worked on? I mean, you said you did the one for the school, their Fab Lab. What about
Yeah.
some of your clients?
Let me see. What springs to mind is a friend of mine, Carol Eckerly. She was our first client ever. So 2017, when we built our first studio for someone in their home office, it was her.
Hmm.
And she very quickly dove into editing, which most people hate, including myself. Even though it's been my bread and butter, I've done it for almost 20 years. We have an agency built around editing. I don't love it unless it's my own video because then there's no boss. So
There you go.
um, for a client to take the editing was so fun to watch. And she is someone who helps with all the visual for female entrepreneurs and executives. So they do wardrobe, they do photography, they do rebrands and refreshes online. And she got so good at video, she started bolting it on as one of her services. And then
Nice.
every once in a while, we still, all these years later, get to work with each other because she'll film stuff on location, doing a bunch of stuff with some female executives, and then send us the raw footage and we edit and give it back for the final product. And it's just been so cool to see someone who is not a video production company add on really high quality services like that. And we still get to kind of work with them and be friends all these years later. So Carol's definitely one of them. Her company is called Image Impact, and she just does such fun work with people.
Nice.
Um, and sometimes we get to work with bigger creators, which is cool that they're bigger creators and they're well known, but they make such positive impact sometimes that it's cool to be part of their process. So there's, some people like Vanessa Van Edwards. She's like TED talker, author, has a big YouTube channel, all this great stuff, and helping her with her studio and upgrade and stuff. We got to know while we were doing that, we were helping someone make a bunch of dents on our behalf. So that really fit, kind of our motto really well as well. And then, yeah, all kinds of cool stuff in between and tiny little companies that only need a little bit of help for a couple months. And I think my favorite that we don't get to work with that often, and I wish we did, is salespeople and SaaS demo people, the people that jump on and show you
Really?
how the software works. A lot of
Okay.
times, those two suffer from not looking and sounding the greatest in their demos and on their calls. And not that I'm going around judging everyone thinking they should look and sound perfect, but you can make such a bigger impact just looking and sounding really
Mhm.
crisp while you do the thing you've always done well anyway. And I wish I got to work with a little bit more people in that genre. So like when I do get to work with those folks, I'm really excited.
Nice. Very cool. And I know you talked about a couple different products you have. The 3 Hour Studio.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah. It's called 3 Hour Studio because I want to make it as easy as possible on folks. And so it's three 1 hour sessions. And that was born out of what we launched in 2017. And then in 2020, obviously, shutdowns, a lot more remote work, a lot of things changing. We ended up kind of ahead of the curve for the first time in my career. So we had already been on Zoom for years. We'd already been helping people build home studios. And then people in our network were coming around like, hey, you know how I train executives on how to present better? I'm still doing that, but they won't let me in the building. So I have to do it remotely now. And I look
Okay.
like terrible help. And so very quickly we're like, okay, we've helped hundreds of people do this. Can we do it remotely? And through the power of little bit of human ingenuity, some tutorial videos, and Amazon still drop shipping equipment off to people. We were able to start doing it remotely, and our first two remote clients went off without a hitch. And I'm like, okay, I think we can pull this off.
Nice.
So now we do it for people all over the world as long as they have access to Amazon. And it's one of my favorite products because there's such a before and after element that people feel really good when they're done because they look and sound great now, and they're like, whoa, what's possible now? And that's one of my favorites. And it's just three 1 hour sessions. So we try and make it
Very
easy
cool.
on them.
And so when you say you're setting up a studio, is that for them to record like podcasts in and record the videos that they're doing? Is that what it is?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
Nice.
And essentially, we kind of tap in, see what gear they might already have, including their space and their computer. Get to know them a little bit. I'm looking at your space, I'm seeing guitars on the wall and some artwork behind you and some color. And that's the exact stuff we help people kind of tap into and create their own vibe in the space that they're already in. And they leave with like a top-down schematic and drop ship stuff from Amazon that all they got to do is click and click buy.
Wow.
It shows up. They set it up roughly. They don't have to be professionals. And as
Mhm.
long as they set it up according to our little tutorials, I'm able to look through that new camera equipment and see what their audience is going to see. So now I can say, move that over there, tilt that down, move that light over there, change it to green, all those things. And
Nice.
people are generally really surprised at how easy it is because up front they're like, how are we going to do this when I'm in, the UK and
Yeah.
you're in Texas?
Yeah.
And it's like, trust the process. Yeah, that's fun.
Very cool. That is awesome. I had a studio set up in our condo, and then after the pandemic, hit, my wife and I were sitting here thinking, why? I mean, we did almost everything remotely, right? Why are we sitting here in Atlanta when we could be anywhere in the world, right?
Yeah.
So we sold everything. We threw our clothes and our computers in the back of the Jeep, and we just started traveling. We went back and forth across the U.S. about 4 times, up through Canada. We were down in Costa Rica for a month. Just great. And so now we just settled back in Atlanta again. I've got a house. I'm still trying to figure out everything that I want to do in here and stuff. But
Yeah.
getting that background is because I've been on some podcasts with people that, they look like the monster because they have the
Yeah.
light coming up this way. There's nothing in the background or their laundry is hanging or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
We have nicknames for a
we've seen
lot of
them.
those shots.
We've seen them. Hot sauce editing. Is that the editing um,
Yep.
solution or service you guys provide?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of on the other end of the spectrum from 3 Hour Studio. Um, and we're just all old dogs who have been in the industry a long, long time and want to do work that matters and not try and chase trends, but really like focus on brand integration and storytelling through editing and service a really high quality client.
Nice.
Um, so that fits into businesses in different ways, but some of the things we've been seeing and that we're surprised by are businesses who are generally run by one person who kind of started on their own, then grew over time. They're often um, an expert in their field and known as such. And they started making videos at some point in the past, and then maybe YouTube was their platform, and it started working and growing. And then they're like, "Oh, I can monetize this. We can make a little extra money. Oh, we can get leads from people finding us on YouTube." And then at some point in time, they look around and they're like, "Wait, hold on. I'm managing a small media team now instead of being the day trader guy or the
Mm.
financial planner guy or, whatever my expertise is. This isn't why I was born or put on the planet." So a lot of times we're coming in and we're kind of taking over that post-production process so they can just focus on hitting record, being a genius, hitting stop, and then not thinking about it again and getting back to their clients and services and digital products and stuff like that. So that's
Nice.
one of the kind of surprises we've seen where people have already built this thing and now they feel the pain of accidentally having built an internal media company. So
Sure.
that's fun.
Wow. Very cool. Sounds like a lot of fun because I mean that creativity, I love that aspect of it and stuff, and just being able to have that vision to, I see what you've done here. We can make it so much better if we just do this and this,
Yeah. Yeah. And most of the time, it's the really boring stuff that works really, really well. So it's us
Yeah.
bringing our folder structures and organizational process to production into their environment and kind of forcing the horse to drink water a little bit. And then they realize,
Yeah,
like, wow, this is clean and refreshing. And they start to benefit from our process. And that flywheel
sure.
speeds up a little bit over time. And then they're able to do more, whether it's volume or do more quality and focus on other things that are a little bit more important. So
Well,
it's cool to
yeah.
be a part of that. And
They get
again,
the ROI from all the work you
yep.
do, but then they also get some time back to actually focus on their business.
Yeah,
That's
and
nice.
we do work that's not so pressing like it used to be in the old days, working for corporate and government contracting and stuff. And it goes right back to that helping someone else make dents and us, high-fiving each other after that happens. So yeah,
Nice.
it's nice.
And then where do you find your clients? Do you get a lot of referrals from the clients, or do
Um,
people see your work and say, "Oh, we need to work with this guy"?
Yeah, a lot of it is word of mouth and referrals. I know a lot of businesses are that way. It's not by design, but it's always been like the backbone of our business. So I've never fought
Nice.
it. It's only been the last like 2 years that we've really started like outreach and kind of funneling a little bit people who are already interested in video and looking and sounding better. We're still kind of new to that. So we are getting some of our clients from that, but the real strong, real fast clients are always referrals from people who are already working with them, doing great work. And they're like, just hire hot sauce. It's a no-brainer. I want to share this because I love how weird this was for us. And I love to give the example just in case someone hears it and then thinks, oh, what's my version of
Sure.
that? And it's real short. I was
Okay.
working with a mentor. He was mentoring me for free. Was getting frustrated that he couldn't help generate new leads with this outbound process, and he had been doing this his whole career and doing it well. And he's like, "Man, this is so frustrating." I'm like, "You're not the first one to try and help and not be able to help us because we're kind of unique in what we do a little bit. So it's it's a lot of market research. So we're kind of going along, and as we were parting ways amicably, we're still friends, all that, but he was going to mentor less because he's like, frustrated, and we'd kind of done everything we could. He was like, I was in the shower and I had this thought, and I don't know why I didn't think about this before, but like, it's going to sound corny. Job boards. And I'm like, okay, job boards, what's that mean? And he's like, there's already companies looking to hire editors as individuals. What if you said, hey, I know you're wanting to hire that guy for 70 grand a year and give him benefits and hope he doesn't turn over and leave you in 3 months and all that stuff. Have you ever considered a company full of those guys that don't take days off, that don't need benefits, that don't call in sick, and will probably technically cost you 10 or 20,000 less a year than someone who's on site every day? Is it
Nice.
worth the conversation? And we totally have run that system over and over and over. And
Nice.
LinkedIn job boards is a great place where we find
Nice.
those conversations. So it's just a weird one where it's like, I never would have thought of job boards for a cold outreach, but it worked. So I love sharing that story. So maybe someone hears it and goes, well, what's my version
Absolutely.
of something weird like that? Yeah.
No, that's great because you hear, fractional CFOs, fractional,
Yeah.
CMO. Why not? Hey, you don't need them all the time, but when you need them, you want somebody that's got the skills, they've got the talent to get it done. And like I said, you don't have to pay them time off. You don't have to pay them for holidays. They're there when you
Yeah.
need them. Perfect.
Yeah.
Good job. Very nice. Well, let's talk about your business. How many folks you have working for you or with you right now?
Yeah. Right now we're at 9 total. Um,
Okay.
my ops manager is full time, my senior editor is full time, and then we do have a fair amount of contractors. Um,
Okay.
and that's mainly in the hot sauce editing arena. And that's just the way the industry is built. Even when I did
Mhm.
film and TV, even if you're a SAG card holder and all that stuff, you're still technically a freelancer. You're getting jobs because you know a director or a producer and they've recommended you, and then you make a name in the industry, and then people search you out after that. So it's kind of contracted or freelance, no matter where editors exist. Um, and we're looking to bring some of those people on permanently over the next couple years because we've had
Nice.
pretty substantial growth this year. And I would love to be known as this place where any creator with a budget can come and just get that part off their plate and know that
Mm.
we've serviced a whole bunch of folks. Some that I can't mention the name, but I can talk about a little bit. Our channels on YouTube that have 4, 7, 10 million subscribers. They're very well known and established. They're brands that people recognize, and we only actually take a chunk of what they do, but they
Mm.
know they can trust us. So it's cool to know that someone's got their own thing dialed in. From the outside, it looks like they never need help. They're amazing.
Yeah.
Still come along and say, hey, we want to take this show out of all of our shows and give it to you guys and know that we can trust you to turn it over and give it back. And that's been
Nice.
really cool too. So yeah, it's an adventure, and we're hoping to about 2.5 growth this year is what we're pushing hard and aiming for. So just a little bit over doubling what we have now. And I don't have grand designs of being gigantic or anything. I really love the boutique kind of offering that we have. And I think if we get to that level, there'll be a lot of stabilization in there. I'll be doing the best I've ever done in my life. And I think it'll put us at a level 2 where we can at least get our foot in the door for some of that bigger stuff once in a while if we want to try and do a little bit of film and television again. So,
Nice. Very cool. That sounds awesome. So on the podcast, we talk about courage. Where do you find the courage to walk away from the 9 to 5 to create your own success? What type of courage did you have to get it, and where did you find that courage?
yeah.
When going to school for an engineering degree and just kind of walk away like I'm done, right?
Yeah.
I want to go do this. Where did that come from? Have you always been courageous like that, or did you learn that along the way?
Yeah, for the sake of sounding egotistical or similar, it has always been there, but it wasn't cultivated on purpose. So, come from broken, abusive home, amazing single mom raised me and my brother, got us out of harm's way, put us, on a track where we were poor, but we didn't know it. She did a great
Yeah.
job at, we had no idea how bad
Nice.
things were sometimes. And we're still, the three of us, very close knit to this day. Um,
Nice.
just watching that, I didn't watch my mom persevere and go, man, she's so brave. I just watched what was happening and tried to emulate
Mhm.
it as I helped raise my brother. And so it was just always there. And I really kind of didn't know any better. Another thing too that kind of seeped in that I didn't really realize until later looking back, my mom was one of five and she was the only one that went to college.
Wow.
And I'm the first entrepreneur in the whole bloodline. So we both were kind of, maybe we don't have to do the status quo. Maybe we can do something a little bit different for ourselves. And that was kind of instilled in me, as well. She also financed my first drum set, which she
Mm.
should not have been spending the money at the time for sure. And we lived in like a double wide trailer. So she listened to that racket and
Wow.
knew that I needed to beat on some stuff post divorce and, get some angst out as well as be
Yeah.
creative. And looking back, I'm like, I I don't think I would buy my kid a drum set and put it two
Wow.
rooms away. Like, yeah. So a lot of it comes from her. And then some of it, I'm just my brain works a little different than, the neurotypical next door. So there's always been a part that's like, I'm a bit of a realist. There's some optimism in there, but a bit of a realist, a bit of a pragmatist. So things just kind of are the way they are, and I'm kind of in control of what I'm in control of. So I should probably, do the best I can. And so some of it stems from just probably not knowing better.
It's awesome though. So, through your career, have you ever worked for somebody you would consider an outstanding leader?
Yeah, you know what's funny? Totally. My first full-time job ever was for Wendy's, the fast food chain.
Okay.
And the GM there, Gary, I'll never forget the guy, um, believed in me, and I didn't even know what that meant at the time.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And at just 18 years old, I was assistant managing, I was opening, I was prepping, I was doing all this stuff. And I just thought, work hard like my mom did and, make money. Like that's all I was really focused on. Um, and I also married young. Just before 19. So at 18, I was already like, I kind of helped raise my brother. I'm already like on my way out of the house. I was engaged, all this stuff. So I was just like, save money so we can get an apartment. Like it was pretty much just working home every day. But he really instilled a lot of stuff in me that I didn't realize was happening. And then I got my first draftsman, not mechanical engineering, but draftsman job out of Wendy's. And my
Mm.
cousin's husband was a senior engineer somewhere. They needed some draftsmen. He put in a little bit of a word for me. And as I was leaving, he actually offered to match the salary they were offering me to stay. And I couldn't believe that in retrospect
Wow.
because it was a fast food job. It was like, dude, you're going to give me four more dollars. That's insane, especially back then. But I was like, no, this is kind of what I'm going to school for soon and blah, 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 and all that stuff. So I left. But in retrospect, he wanted to keep me around because he had instilled all this stuff in me. And I was
Mhm.
kind of the poster child for coaching. And then I did the things, and he's like, oh, this is a really valuable person to have around now. And so
Nice.
I think he saw some of his work going out the door. So yeah, I always loved Gary. Always had a smile on his face. And another thing in retrospect that's always kind of impacted me about that is he made really good money back then
Mm.
running a Wendy's. And it was just kind of proof that, like, no matter the environment, if you desire to be a leader and you desire to make a living or a career out of something, you kind of can. So I think about that a lot too. Yeah, he's probably one of my favorites.
Nice.
And I do have another John Hankard, incredible human, best male I've ever known in my life, best man
Mm.
I've ever known. He ran a apparel printing company, just sold it a couple years ago to retire. And I was like a art director, and he hired me off the street because we sold so much merch as a band that he was like, "How are you selling so many t-shirts?" I'm like, "Well, we promote well because it's the only money we make." And he's like, "Your designs are better than our designs. Would you come and do art here?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I was a graphic designer anyway, so I was like, "Okay." Um, and over the next 6 years working with him, it was just leadership, pillar of the community, amazing father. Um, the way he handled adversity, the way he treated people that couldn't pay their invoice, stuff like that. It was just a great
Nice.
example for 6 years of the prime of my life to watch someone do it right. So that would probably be the other boss that I always looked up to, and we still talk. So it's kind of cool.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. So what makes a good leader? You mentioned a couple things there. I mean, believing in your employees and helping kind of coach them, right? And encourage them rather than I've had the opposite bosses, and maybe you have too,
Oh yeah,
right? That
yeah,
just thump you on the head and
yeah.
yell and scream and you have no idea what you did, right? What does it take to be a good leader?
I feel like two things come to mind. One is a lot of the things we teach in this company, whether it's to employees or our clients or students, is that almost everything we do is on a spectrum. And usually the extreme of either end is not the answer. So we're always trying to help people find where they fall on that spectrum, no matter whether it's video or creative or not, that sort of thing. So one of the things that my employees like is that because we run this kind of spectrum model on everything, I want to give full creative autonomy. And I also want to give enough framework where you feel safe and you know what to do next.
Nice.
And that forces you to kind of ride this line as opposed to just being extremely one way or the other. And I think leadership is almost always some sort of tightrope walk where you're
Mhm.
trying to do two things that kind of juxtapose each other in a lot of cases, but also when they're in harmony, people feel safe and they feel like they can be themselves. So that's one. And I've had some bad bosses. So those are always in my mind to not be that guy.
Exactly.
And the last little component of that is me and my brother still to this day joke that our father was so terrible. I could list 100 things
Mhm.
that as we were kind of, especially when he got a little older and we were kind of raising each other, it was just like, what's going on at work? What's going on in life? Let's stay close, all these things. We would often joke, like, looking back at our childhood and the male, figure we had in our life, like, well, we know what not to do. So, like, I always looked at my bad bosses going, well, I know what not to do.
Right.
So maybe it's not the polar opposite, but something different is probably the answer. So
Yeah.
that's my kind of overview of leadership in a nutshell. And then I'm probably going to get this wrong because I've never verified it, but I was told it might have been Abraham Lincoln. I don't know for sure. But there was a leader of some sort who put a string on a table and was talking about leadership. And he pushed the string and it just crumpled all up and didn't go anywhere. And then he pulled it and the string followed along. And he said, that's leadership. So I listened to that inside myself a lot. What can I do to pull? Set an example,
Yeah.
fall on the sword sometimes, take responsibility when it's not mine, those sorts of things where I can pull instead of push. I kind of find that that helps out a bit too.
Nice. Well, and you said some things there about um, uh, giving them the framework. You have the
Mhm.
autonomy to get this done. Here's the goal I want you to go after, and then here's a framework to work within. So it gives you that feeling of safety, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's good. Too many times, either the boss wants to micromanage by staring over your shoulder and telling you what to do. Oh, no, 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 use your other hand for that. It's like,
Yeah.
does it matter, right? Or they say, that's the goal. Good luck, Godspeed, and you have no idea, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
like that you put that framework in there. That's good.
The analogy, I'm one of those people that actually sees the image when I think about things. And the analogy that I see in my head, and I'm seeing it right now because I'm about ready to say it, is bumper bowling. Like, if I want you to get to be a good bowler, you're never going to
Mhm.
hit the bumpers. You're going to throw it down the center with some kind of
Yep.
curve and but in the beginning, I'm going to make sure you don't throw gutters. And I
Right.
always just think about those bumpers coming up and then eventually they come down and you still have your gutters, but for the most part we're doing a good job now.
Nice.
So yeah. Yeah, that's the way I think of it. Very literal.
Good job. Good job. So if I was to bump into any of your current employees on the street or former employees or people you work with and stuff, um, what kind of leader would they say you are?
Um, Communicative. Um,
Good.
I I definitely know that, and I strive for communication at a high level with clients and with our team. Um, that's part of that tightrope walking because you want to give autonomy and not micromanage, but you want to communicate. So those
Mhm.
two things do yin and yang a little bit. And I think the other is um, there's a term, and I think people understand it once they get to know me. There's a term that's like, take no crap, do no harm. And I feel like I'm
Okay.
kind of that guy. Like my fuse is real long. I'm going to take the high road almost every
Mhm.
time. But if the boundary is crossed and you know it, or the fuse is gone, I will not take any crap. So I think that brings a little bit of understanding and setting of expectations and another little dose of that feeling of safety, because I know that to get all the way to the point where I'm going to get fired or Dan's going to be upset as a human at me, it's going to take me really like ignoring a lot of signals and like,
Yeah.
going off the rails for that to happen. So I hope those two things, that I communicate well and that they understand how I
Yeah.
am as a person so they can operate within that. And then the true desire I have to have my business be like a greenhouse where you're a carrot, you know how to grow, you know what you need. I'm just here
Right.
to tend. And then I can go back in and sleep while things grow. Like that's really the
Yeah.
goal for me. So probably those two things. And then there's some things I
Nice.
hope they think, but those two I know they do.
Well, like what? What do you hope they think?
That I care about them and I don't just say that I care about them. Um, I have this wild idea that, capitalism and caring can somehow coexist a little bit.
Sure.
And I have a drive, and I say out loud a lot in different groups and communities and stuff I'm a part of, that good people need bigger bank accounts. So I hope that they know that as a leader, that I really do mean what I say. And I feel those things deeply. I don't just say them to like
Yeah.
try to spin up a culture or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and that people are more important than the work, which kind of falls along that same line, but it's true. And sometimes that's led to people not working with us anymore and a split
Hmm.
happening amicably and an understanding being there why this isn't working, but done in a way where no one's left to be embarrassed or ashamed of
Nice.
what's transpired. And that comes on the heels of that really just wanting to be human first, business second,
Yeah.
and, you know, hopefully it's a small percentage of time that it varies from that. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, and it seems like things are working for you. So I think you've got the recipe just about right.
We're trying. Yeah, the next step, we work really closely with some internal consultants and stuff around me, not only scaling myself so the business can scale behind me, but also like getting weekends off. So um, I feel like we're in a good spot in 2025 with continued growth. I hope also brings some stepping back a little. I'm mid 40s now, so I'm like, we've put in a lot of work. Let's take a Saturday and Sunday off here and there and breathe a
There you
little
go.
bit, hang out with the family. So yeah.
Very cool. So what's one big goal for 25?
Um, it's so generic, but it really is that 2.5x on the revenue. Not
Mhm.
because it's, some number I've aspired to my whole life or anything like that, but because it just makes sense on paper to bring stabilization and to make it real easy if someone needs to go on vacation or take a day off or whatever. No one else is stressed because the things are big enough to be taken care of, both on the client and employee side. So even though it's a number on a board, it's really, I'm thinking about double how good we are, double how many of us there are, double our sales efforts, just kind of uh, growth for the sake of the betterment of the people working for the
Yeah.
company, not just for money's sake. Because growing up dirt poor, money's always been a tool. It's never
Yeah.
been anything else to us. So I just see dollar bills as crowbars. I can just
Nice.
get stuff unstuck and leverage. So it's not about money at all. It's just about stability in the company being big enough to do some of the cool stuff I want to do. And then the ultimate, and I don't know if this will be in 25, but it would make me happy if it was. There was a very clear decision made to leave behind newbies as we grew the company. And I knew that people with tiny budgets, we wouldn't be able to have enough of those clients to get to where we want to go.
Yeah.
And my justification within myself was to put a lot of emphasis on our YouTube channel and newsletter so people could always still get really high quality information for free. And then what I would love to do with that stability would be to offer some sort of scholarship programming, something to where if someone's really serious about
Nice.
looking and sounding great on camera for their business, we might be able to welcome them in a cheap or free way and get them there. And that would be me kind of atoning for the sins of leaving all them behind years ago because I knew it had to be that way. So that would be great to see little inklings of that next year.
Very cool. That sounds awesome. So is it two times? Is that growth or is that scaling? Are you trying to be more efficient with what you do, or you're actually going to try to grow the business, or a little of both?
Yeah, and maybe a little of both. I know it's kind of a cop-out answer, but like efficiency is a big part of it. So the internal consultation we have right now is all about systems and efficiency,
Nice.
and they've also helped us hire some of our team as well.
Good.
So um, we definitely, we got the wheels from square to round, but we're still on a dirt road, so there's still a lot of bumps and slide outs every once in a while. So laying down some asphalt would be nice, so the ride's a little smoother. And then growth, I think, will come from just cranking out this high quality work we've done this last year. Because those recommendations and referrals have come from some pretty big places. So if we can continue that kind of impact, I think we could get there. So it would be a little bit of both.
Very
Um,
cool.
but I think, I mean, I'm from Flint, Michigan. It's all just gritty, hang on tight, make something happen
Yeah.
type stuff. So like I feel like smoothing out the internal workings and really just putting our heads down and doing good work will probably be a bulk of the effort on our side. Yeah.
Nice. Is there a specific customer or client you'd love to go after in 25? Somebody is like, oh, I'm dying to work with them.
We had a couple opportunities where we got close and we were just kind of outdone in one way or another. It reminded me of my old government contracting days where you had to bid everything.
Mhm.
These weren't bids, but we knew we were up against other people. And it was with two different companies. One was a streaming platform for mobile, and all their shows are made in studio and they're all vertical. And they're almost like a mix of like a soap opera and a romance novel. And they have like B-rate type actors who do most of the acting, and they put these shows out on a pretty consistent basis. And a season might have 50 episodes that are like 2 minutes long each. So every day you
Wow.
just get a little vertical 2 minute video and follow the story along. And then another one is an agency who houses a lot of high performing and large YouTube channel creators. And oftentimes, as they absorb more and more of these creators that they sponsor or represent, they have more and more editing needs. And one of the biggest in the country, we were up for something. We're still in talks, and there still might be some
Nice.
2025 stuff. But that I think would be cool, not because it's big or someone might recognize the name. I did that back in my corporate days. It's about they make complete products in a
Mm.
lot of different areas. So we would be primed to show the world that we can come in and just take one of your shows, just one of your products. We don't have to be your all, end all
Right.
be all. And I think if we can do that with some recognizable names, other names will be like, oh, we're overwhelmed. We only have 6 in-house editors. We'd like to hand off one of our shows to you. And we could show that,
Nice.
we could absorb and do post-production for that. I would never want to fully go that direction at all, but a little bit of that I think would be cool. And we help a lot of people who have YouTube channels. So I just love that space. I love the way everything's heading where people are kind of their own creative entities, and we want to support that.
Very cool. Good deal. Well, Dan, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the program. If people want to get in touch with you or learn more about what you do, how can they
Yeah.
do that? What's your website?
Yeah, I bought a URL 3 or 4 years ago. Actually, more now. Wow, I moved down here 3 years ago, about 5 years ago, called danhaslinks.com.
Okay.
And it's just a stack of buttons that take you everywhere I am on the internet.
Excellent.
And I bought it for being on podcasts. So danhaslinks.com. And even though the spelling gives us all fits, if you can remember Video for Entrepreneurs, that's our handle on pretty much every platform. But yeah,
Very cool.
Dan has links. We got free tools on there. We got our newsletter. We got our website, all that stuff.
Nice. Awesome. All right. I will make sure that link and the other links, video for entrepreneurs and stuff, that's all in the show notes. And Dan, again, it's been great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Like this was fun. You asked great questions, and
Thanks.
your calm demeanor makes it real comfortable here. So
When you
I
get to be
appreciate
my
it.
age, there, yeah, you're calm. Calm is good.
I like
All
it.
right, listeners, hope you guys got a lot out of this. Definitely check out Dan Bennett. Check out either videoforoentrepreneurs.com or Dan's Got Links, right? Dan
danhaslinks.com.
has links. Got it. I will have all that down in the show notes. Share this with your family, friends, entrepreneurs. And if you're looking to get into a little bit more video information, check out Dan. All right. And that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Share, like, comment, and we'll talk to you next time on The Courage to Lead. Thanks a lot.